Welcome to the first ever Real Estate Summer Series podcast brought to you by Gramercy Real Estate Group. My name is Blanca and I have the pleasure of introducing Manuel de Lemos. Manuel is the founder of Manuel de Lemos Architects. Manuel, as you know, we manage one of the largest real estate groups on Facebook called Act 2022 Real Estate Guide. A lot of our members have questions about just architecture in general and the planning process in Puerto Rico. And so I have some questions here for you. The first one is, what is the difference in construction methods between Puerto Rico and mainland US?
The difference is basically that in the States, construction is residential construction is basically in wood. In Puerto Rico, it's concrete. 90%, 99%, everything is built in concrete. Now, there's a big difference in cost, big difference in time of construction. There's a big difference in building a new house versus remodeling. In the States, you can see that remodeling takes only a few weeks because partitions are made out of wood and gypsum board. In Puerto Rico, your house is made out of concrete walls or masonry walls, and that takes a very much more effort to change partitions, and sometimes the clients don't understand that difference.
I see. Okay. And so what would you say in this market or in general, what would you recommend then, embarking on a new construction project or perhaps just remodeling an existing structure? And I guess you answered that question, but what would you?
It depends also where the residence is, the property is. If it's in a place where there's a lot of residences, like a master plan community, the permits are there. Sometimes it's easier to build a house or remodel one of those existing houses because the permits are there. If you go outside of a master plan community, you buy your own lot. It depends if it's near the coast, then permits might be a big problem.
Yes.
If you go up on the hills and buy 2 acres of land, you probably won't have any problem in permitting what you want for an individual private residence.
Okay, and talking about permits, does every construction job in Puerto Rico need a permit? Or, like for instance, if someone wants to do a fence in their home or a pool, what things do require permitting and what things don't?
Okay. There's a big misconception on that most people think that you don't need any kind of permit to build a wall or to build a pool or remodel your kitchen. The reality is that all municipalities will need to charge a fee for any construction. So they have a way of finding out where these remodeling are going, and they can fine you. A fine can be up to $500. And then they force you to get a permit. The permit is easy. It is not complicated. But everything over $3,000 will need some kind of a permit from at least the municipality where it is.
That's very, very important to know. Okay, and let's say, as far as the architectural process in general, once a person decides on an architect that they want to use for whatever project they want to do, what are the steps to start that process?
Okay, I'm glad you asked that question because it's also one of the main problems. If you are a client, you probably know what you want. You've probably seen photographs of a house that you like or the style of the house that you like. You should know as a client and discuss this at the beginning with the architect, how many square foot do you need, how many rooms, how many baths, and last but not least, the budget. Every architect will need to know a budget, a real budget. Sometimes the husband has a budget, sometimes the wife has a budget, and that can become a problem. Now, once you as a client know what you want, at least, then you can look for different architects, ask somebody, get references, ask for drawings of what that architect has done before, especially residences. Then you can sit down with the architect, discuss budget, discuss the site where you want to build. The architect will tell you what things that he needs. He needs a survey of the property. He needs a title, that you show him title of that property. And then the architect will probably hand you a contract to sign, which in Puerto Rico, 90% of the architects will use the American Institute of Architects standard contract, which should be revised by a local lawyer, of course. But it's a standard in the United States between a client and an architect. The architect will do a schematic design where he shows different alternatives. Then preliminary design where he will show you a more developed idea of what you finally decided. And then he will do construction documents, which are the documents that are used for going to bids and getting a contractor. The architect will also help you get a contractor.
And by the way, those construction plans and specifications are in English or in Spanish in Puerto Rico?
Okay, in Puerto Rico, everything is in English. The plans are made in English because what you buy, the wood, the windows, the flooring, the carpet, comes from the States, and the specifications are in English. Actually, if you build in Europe internationally, the plans are in English because the steel might come from England, the marble will come from Italy, some other, the bathrooms might come from Spain, and the common language is English.
And so, in general, how long would you say takes an architect to finalize construction plans and architectural drawings, let's say for a single family home?
Okay, usually the schematics can take maybe 2 weeks after signing the contract.
Okay.
Maybe 2 weeks, because it's a general idea. By that time, you should have the survey. You might need a soil study, if it's depending on where the land is. You might need to know what the soil can hold. Meanwhile, you can do the schematics, and that maybe 2 weeks, 20, 21 days the most. And then the preliminary, which will be done after you come to an agreement with the client that that's what he wants. Then you go to the next step, which is a preliminary design, which is more detailed. Then you show perspectives, and you show maybe the interiors. You start talking finishes. You then get consultants. You need an electrical consultant. You need a mechanical for air conditioning and plumbing, and a structural engineer also. And the architect will lead that team.
Okay.
The preliminary might be 30 days. The construction documents usually are 40 to 60 days, depending on the complexity of the project. And then you can give those plans, that part of the plan, to a supplier who will then come back to the architect with what we call shop drawings, which is the actual door that manufacturer will supply. And then you check it off versus what you wanted to specify. If you are on the coast and you want hurricane protection, then that window is very different from one in the mountains.
And that's very important right now, given everything that has happened in Puerto Rico
and
with the
hurricanes. And in terms of budget, because you're using aluminum, all those materials, including wood, which comes from the States. There's no wood in Puerto Rico, and wood has blown up in cost in the last few weeks in the United States. Everything impacts the cost. and the budget. Windows might be, if you want hurricane-proof windows, resistant, because nothing is proof. It can be almost a third of the budget or more of a house.
Well, that's very good observation too. That's a very popular question as well. You know, the construction costs of building a home ground up new, and those differences in cost after Maria and how expensive these windows are. So the architectural drawings and that part of the process, you would say would take how long? And then once you start construction, from the start to delivery, how long would that process take typically in Puerto Rico, give or take?
Okay. If you're on the coast, the permitting will control everything. But if you're in Santurce, the permitting should be very easy, whatever you want to do. But usually once you get the permitting, the plans might be, 3-4 months between agreement, because I tell you 30 days for this, 40 days for that. But between, there's the discussion between the client and his wife and her husband. And once they agree, it might take a month. And everything stops during that time. But once you start construction, and you go through a process of choosing a contractor, you need at least 2 or 3. You should never go with just one, so you can compare numbers. Usually a residence in Puerto Rico made out of concrete can take a year, 2 months, if everything goes well.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Manuel. We appreciate your time. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. If you have any more questions for Manuel, please feel free to go to Manuel de Lemos Architects through the web. Thank you.